Parents of tweens, if you're familiar with far-off drop-offs...
Dad, stop, right here.
Or get DMs about what's for dinner, you may be experiencing tween milestones. For your son or daughter, these can start at age 9. HPV vaccination, a type of cancer prevention against certain HPV-related cancers, can start then too.
For most, HPV clears on its own. But for those who don't clear the virus, it can cause certain cancers later in life.
Embrace this phase. Help protect them in the next.
Ask their doctor today about HPV vaccination. Brought to you by Merck.
Support comes from ServiceNow. We're for people doing the creative work they actually want to do. That's why this ad was written and read by a real person and not AI. You know what people don't want to do? Boring, busy work. Now with AI agents built into the ServiceNow platform, you can automate millions of repetitive tasks in every corner of your business, IT, HR, and more, so your people can focus on the work that they want to do. That's putting AI agents to work for people. It's your turn. Visit servicenow.com.
Faraday presenta Ojos con Alergia y Picazón contra el jardinero. Y el ganador es Faraday Extra Fuerte. Para aliviar la picazón de los ojos por alergia, actúa más rápido y supera a Claritin y Flonase aún a las 24 horas. Faraday, adelante.
Hello and welcome to the Cardiff Central podcast, and it's whatever the opposite to a Carlsberg weekend is for Cardiff over the weekend. As the first lose to the Bulls, the Rags go down to Newport, and every result in between goes against the Blue and Blacks, basically. It was a nightmare for Matt Sherritt's men. We'll be looking back on proceedings at Loftus Versfeld, considering Jockey's team selections, touching on Wales' summer tour to Japan, reviewing the Rags season as a whole, and having a look ahead to this weekend's crucial game against the Stormers.
You're listening to the Cardiff Central podcast.
Joining me on the panel this week with Frazier Stroud. Fraser, how are you?
Yeah, not bad. Not the best time to come back to the pod after getting absolutely battered, but yeah, nice to be back.
We'll be tracking the results when you have breaks and when you come back, just to check if there is a thing there, and then you'll be permanently benched if there is.
Yeah, fair.
And Andrew Fordy, how are you?
Yeah, good, thanks, mate. Yeah, bit gutted to be on the pod after the weekend, but sure, I feel better after we chatted through.
Yeah, it's group therapy, this can be. We had a few three-word thoughts after the game. Like I mentioned, after the wins, winning is definitely better for engagement. It turns out nobody really is interested in giving three-word thoughts after a loss, but there was a kind of mixed bag of them. There was Ben said that we never gave up, and whoever was doing the CF10 stuff on Blue Sky this week said it was heart at height, which I enjoyed that. And then Tony of this parish just went with "I hate us." Nathan said it lack of power, and Andrew went with other Andrew, not this one, outmuscled and outplayed. So yeah, two different ways of looking at it. I think some proud of the second half performance, some not so keen on the first half performance. Certainly, it was Bulls 45, Cardiff 21 at full time. It was 31-0 at half time. Second half Cardiff tries came from Alex Mann, Teddy Williams, and Gabe Hamer-Webb. But unfortunately, Munster, Edinburgh, Benetton, and Scarlets all won in a proper kick in the teeth for Cardiff over the weekend. Fordy, I come to you first because you fortunately only had half an eye on the game, not like the rest of us who had to watch the full thing. What did you make of it from your quick eye from the pub?
Yeah, so I was out on Saturday and I caught like the first 10 minutes. I was going to watch it on my phone, but kind of as I walked from A to B, saw what the score was, and I just thought I can't really be bothered with that. Can't put myself through that. So managed to rewatch a bit of it this morning, but it was quite a depressing watch. So nice seeing some of the Cardiff tries, and there was some good work in the second half. But yeah, probably not the most clued up on the game this weekend.
Yeah, that's probably the best way to be honest. I think, Fraser, we did have the misfortune of watching it. I suppose, like, the first half is where it was won and lost, really. The second half didn't really matter in the end, as we got no points out of it. Was that our worst half of the season?
I mean, I think you could probably argue it was. I mean, we got absolutely battered. Just like, I mean, there was so much, it was like a bit men against boysy. It was quite humbling, I think, after we'd been on like a good run of form, and they were just so physically dominated us. Like, I think it was only in the first half, it was like Evan Lloyd seemed like the only player who like could in any way match physically the South Africans, but the rest of us were just, or the rest of the team just seemed to get trampled over by the Bulls. And then like players like Grobbelaar, their hooker was pretty amazing, and then obviously you got Wilco though, it was like 4 people in one person. It was pretty mental. But we were really poor because if we were physically dominated, when we got the ball to play a bit, I think there was only one occasion in the first half where we like kind of made a break, and that ended up in just like a kick from Millard, I think, and it just went out of play. It was like that was the most exciting thing that we did. It was just like rubbish. But so yeah, we were just really shit all over. To be fair, I don't know if we were a bit shell shocked or just not ready for it. Obviously, we made some changes we'll talk about, but it just seemed the first half was absolutely awful. But to be fair, also give credit to Bulls. They were superb from 60 plus minutes. They were pretty good. Like LaRue was so classy. He's such a good player, but his like kicking was pinpoint. And even when he did a shit kick, it somehow worked out. He was just one of those games where it all just kind of like played out, like worked. They're like Moody's amazing. Kayla Moody's a brilliant winger, as is de Klerk. I mean, I don't really know de Klerk, but he looked pretty tasty as well. So they all just kind of like were clicking, offloading, making us look silly. But then again, we were allowing them to do that and looked pretty shoddy in the first half. So yeah, I could agree with it being probably a worse first half, because it could have been 38-0 as well. It could have been worse. They had opportunities that they didn't take. Like the 31-0 was like kind of kind to us, which is pretty embarrassing to say, but it's true.
Yeah, I feel like the Bulls at the Loftus Versfeld is everything that Cardiff don't want to face, basically. Like an absolutely massive pack who are very good at the set piece, rapid wingers, and at altitude, which just makes everything that Cardiff have been good at over the last few weeks, like the kick and chase and the defensive effort and then being clinical in attack, just makes that so much harder as well when you're not used to it. So yeah, it was literally like the antithesis of Cardiff, basically, is what we went up against, and it definitely showed in that first half. You're right to say about the attack. We basically fired absolutely 0 shots in that first half, and I wonder if a little bit of that comes back to, obviously, Tina Stabia was the starting fly half on Saturday. It's his first minutes since March, his first start since January. Before this weekend, he'd played about 240 minutes worth of rugby all season. Obviously, there's the Mulvihill Hill rule where you have to start against your former club, but maybe it was exacerbated in this sense by Jockey possibly thinking that, picking a fly half who's played for the Bulls and has, experienced that altitude might have helped. But Fraser, like, did they get the team selection wrong, really? And is that becoming a little bit of a theme throughout the season where, if you look back to Perpignan away in the Challenge Cup, that cost us a little bit. Benetton away in the URC, we could have won that potentially with a full strength team. And then if we'd gone full strength, might we have got something out of Saturday? Is it fair to sort of criticise or ask the questions of Jockey over that?
I think it is fair to ask the questions, because we could have got a bonus point there, definitely. I mean, I know we weren't obviously we're not targeting to win that match against the Bulls, I guess, and that showed the team selection. But I guess it's maybe tinkering in the wrong places. Because, I mean, when there were changes, I mean, did Jennings come on to play it? Ben Thomas went to 10, didn't he?
Jennings came on at halftime, yeah.
And when we looked better, I mean, obviously the Bulls, I think they started taking the piss a bit. I mean, was there a drop goal attempt from halfway?
Yes.
LaRue, which was definitely just like, I want this on a highlight reel. I'm going to be on one of 4D's videos, so I'm going to do a halfway line drop goal. But yeah, I do think we maybe, or Sherritt made some mistakes there. Because when we made those changes, and obviously Falatau and Teddy Williams made a massive impact. I mean, Falatau for the 30-minute or 25 minutes he was on was really good. He's just such a class act, an amazing player. And I think we were so close to getting a bonus point, and probably give another 5 minutes in that match, we would have got it. Which is all the more frustrating, because up until 65 minutes, we didn't look like we were going to get anything from it. But then the changes came on, and we started kind of doing a little bit better. So maybe it's like who we're taking out of the squad, and like you said, Tina Spear hasn't played much at all this season. So our forward's always going to get battered by the Bulls. Like I don't know what you can change about that necessarily. Obviously, Valatar and Teddy starting would help, but I think in the backs changing and getting De Beer in is quite significant when Sheedy's been doing so well recently and it's looking so cohesive. So I think that maybe was an error. But then again, yeah, I don't know. It's tricky. It wasn't a game that we were going to get much out of, but it's a shame that we got 3 tries, could have got a bonus point and didn't quite get over the line, and that you could kind of point at the selection initially as to why that didn't come to fruition.
I think it's a bit of a shame for De Beer as well, actually, because that's probably his last performance for Cardiff. And yeah, to get hooked at half time, it felt like we stitched him up a little bit there. And hopefully we'll skirt over that and remember the performances he put in last season rather than that final 40. 40. I have similar questions to you, really. Is it though? Is it just where Cardiff are at the moment with the sort of the lack of depth in the squad? Like you can't pick everybody every week, or do we need to at the start of the season make clear our priorities a bit more? Like we sort of switch back and forth between prioritizing the Challenge Cup and the forgetting the league, like with the Connacht and Benetton situation at the start of this block. But then back at Christmas time, we were prioritizing the league and binning the Challenge Cup off a bit. Is it been a bit confused in that sense?
Yeah, definitely, but it's a really difficult thing to balance. Like I got the sense from in the second half of the Bulls game when Josh McNally came off and then Alan Lawrence went into the second row, it was kind of preserving McNally for next week and likely Faletau is going to start next week, so Lawrence is going to feature off the bench or potentially not even be involved at all. And it's just kind of preserving those players, that knowing that playing somewhere like Loftus Versfeld's never going to be a fun experience, and for someone, especially in the pack, when you're up against a pack like that, playing a full 80 minutes with a 6-day turnaround is massive. Like it's a difficult thing to be able to manage. So I think, yeah, going forward, usually in South Africa anyway, we tend to chop and change quite often. So, but when it comes to as important games as this, it's really difficult to balance, but it just kind of means we've got like a cup final now on Friday, and if you can't get up for a game like that, I'm not sure what game you can get up for.
Yeah, and I think it is worth saying that selection question is worth looking at in the bigger picture. But I think in this specific instance, even getting the bonus points on the weekend, I think it still leaves us having to beat Stormers on Friday anyway because of all the other results that went against us. Like everybody's out to get us. I bet it's that guy from Helford. He's just pumping money into other people now, making sure they win. Fraser, a couple of individuals just to talk about, and we'll come on to properly onto Wales towards Japan with Sherritt and stuff in a bit in the news section. But just looking ahead to selection, somebody who I thought stood out quite a lot, particularly second half, was involved heavily, was Alex Mann. He had 10 carries to 27 metres. His 11 tackles were the tied top for Cardiff, and he got a try and like a lovely assist for Teddy's try as well. Really nice offload. Jack Morgan's obviously going to be unavailable for Wales this summer. There's still a lot of competition there. But is his performance his second half of the season putting his hands back up for international selection?
I think he is in a way. Yeah, I thought he was great on the weekend. Like, I mean, his finish for the try was excellent. That was like proper winger's finish. And yeah, I think he thrives off the physicality. Like he's not the biggest six, or was he playing six? Yeah, he's not the biggest player, but he just loves a like tear up, and like you can just see he thrives off that and wants to like kind of as we've said before, he's a bastard. But he's played really well. Like he puts his wears his heart on his sleeve and he tries so hard. I think I wouldn't be shocked if he did get on the plane to Japan, like not starting, but maybe a few appearances off the bench. I mean, obviously he was thrown into it when he initially started for Wales. That was like kind of a crazy situation. And I think obviously with Jockey, we might talk about it later, kind of leading Wales to Japan, then I can see him having a place for Man because he's got just that attitude and that like never say die demeanor. And then he does play well. He's got good skills. I don't think he's like spectacular in anything he does, but he's like really solid in kind of a lot of different areas. And I think he did a quite good clearing kick at one point as well. He's like quite a good footballer and has that kind of edge and physicality that's always well received in international rugby. So yeah, I could see him getting on the plane, getting a few minutes for Wales, and I don't see why not. I'm sure he'll be good for the team as well, like motivation. Yeah.
Andrew, another player who has been talked about a little bit over the last few weeks, Gabe Hamer-Webb. He's made it 5 tries in 3 games now, scoring in each of the last 3 games. Winger, an interesting position for Wales, really, where there sort of is and isn't depth at the same time. There's like lots of options, but nobody like properly claiming a spot consistently in that sort of match day 23. Is he somebody who could be off to Japan, especially with his sort of international selection or eligibility up in the air between Wales and England?
Yeah, you'd hope so. After the last few months in particular, he's been kind of on fire. So definitely warrants a caller, I reckon. But again, as much as there's not much depth, the starting back 3, the Six Nations was Blair Murray, Tom Rogers, and Ellis Mee, who were 3 players who were quite young. So that kind of scuppers things a little bit if they want to kind of continue with a kind of consistent back 3 who are all playing club rugby together. But he's definitely worth a shot. And he was quite a bright spark when we signed him last season, but he seems to have like gone up a level in the last few months. Whether that's him playing for a contract or playing for maybe England international representation, I'm not sure. But yeah, I think it'd be a great chance to kind of cap him. And if Jockey is there in the summer as well, I'm sure he'll put a good word in.
Yeah, I'd say a point of difference for him as well is that, the 3 guys you mentioned there, like Gabe is significantly more physical, I would suggest, than all of those. We're not in a similar way to we haven't bought any big second rows through for a long time. A lot of our back 3 prospects are actually also just absolutely tiny blokes. We've got a lot of small nippy lads, but nobody. There was a carry that Gabe did midway through the second half where he comes off the left wing and busts up off Evan Lloyd, who's peeled off the back of the maul. And I just looked at that and thought, Wales could really do with some of that, to be honest. I think especially going to Japan, where we might be able to dominate them a bit physically. Cool, that's that. And I don't think we want to dwell on Saturday too much longer. If anyone else has got anything they're desperate to say, but no, I take that as a no, and we'll move on to the news. We had after last week's squad building special on the pod, where we spent a bit of time discussing sort of the back 3, and particularly around wingers who are out of contract, guys like Theo Cabango and Harry Millard, and we wondered whether one of them might be on the move. The next day, they announced Harry Millard had signed a new long-term contract. Long-term in inverted commas again, because no one really knows how long-term is anymore. Fraser, he's had a great season, joint top try scorer, I think, still after the weekend in the URC. I obviously moved into 13 a little bit last few weeks. I don't think anyone's going to complain about Millard signing a new deal.
No, I think it's a solid signing. He's a good quality player. Obviously good on a wing, scored a lot of tries for us, and I think I've been quietly impressed him coming into 13, because obviously losing Lilo is a pretty massive blow, or could have been, and it is still a problem. But I think he's come in and he's conducts himself really well. He's impressed I've been impressed with his defense. He's quite physically strong in the tackle. I've seen some he's smashing a few players. It's quite impressive. And with that versatility, if he having that in your back pocket, being a quality winger, and then being able to go into 13, and us not being like, oh fuck, what's going to happen? What's he going to be like? It's we know he's going to be solid. He's not going to be not in the World Cup, but you can put him at 13 and you're not going to be too worried about it. So I think that's a pretty special talent to have. I'm glad we're keeping him forever long term, however long term is. So positive. I'm pleased with that.
We still have a couple of former Cardiff players sort of on the move or calling it a day the last few weeks as well. Gareth Anscombe's off to Bayonne. Very nice for him. Dane Blacker's going back to the Scarlets. Not so nice for him. And then Rowan Jenkins retired this week. Aberavon Loosehead, who played a couple of 100 times for them, but obviously from a Cardiff point of view will be best remembered as the Loosehead who started in both of those misfit 15 games against Harlequins and Toulouse in December 2021. I think that video of him going back to Aberavon afterwards and everyone jumping on him was a particular highlight of that week. So congratulations to him and good luck on his next step. And Rhys Shellard as well, who many moons ago was coming through the Cardiff Academy, having played for Wales under 18s, 19s, 21s. I think he captained the 21s as well. played for the Rags for a bit after leaving the academy, and then played like 250 odd times for Pontypridd. Has been playing for Aberdare and coaching Aberdare the last few seasons as well. So a guy who's obviously offered a lot to rugby in this area. Best of luck to him on his next step. So I assume he's staying on as coach at Aberdare, but whatever he's doing next. The other piece of news last week then, Fordy, was that it seems that Jockey is set to take Wales to Japan, going back in as interim coach. Now that he's employed by the WRU, I guess it's a whether he likes it or not situation. He's going to be doing that. Glenn on Twitter said, when asked about thoughts on that, he said that he felt that Jockey came back a better coach after the Six Nations, so no issues if he went again, but just not permanently, which I think probably reflects the view of quite a lot of us. But from a Wales point of view, is that sort of the smart move if you haven't got a permanent guy in to get Jockey in to do it again?
It's a bit frustrating that they haven't kind of got something set in place when this is going to be such a big kind of development block for the players coming through, and with so few Lions as well, it's kind of a chance to get a couple of wins, get that win streak over and done with, hopefully. The losing streak even. Don't want to get ahead of myself there. But obviously, I think it's a positive for Cardiff that he's going. I think he went as backs coach in 2017 during the Lions tour when they were down playing Samoa and Tonga. So certainly a positive, and hopefully give a chance for a few of the boys to get some more international honours. But yeah, I think definitely going forward, I wouldn't want him to be permanently involved in Wales, because we're building something quite good at the Arms Park. And if he was to go and be involved with Wales next season, then we'd just be starting from the start all over again, which seems a recurring theme as a Cardiff fan.
Yeah, absolutely. And I saw a few people suggesting that it'll just be a Cardiff team to go out there. I'm actually hoping for the opposite, and that Sherratt sort of takes the view of resting Cardiff players, and we take a full Ospreys and Scarlets select 30-man squad out there and really work them to the bone ahead of next season. Cardiff are nice and fresh coming into pre-season. As Fordy mentioned there, sort of it's not really news because there was nothing to report, but no Cardiff players in the Lions squad. First time since 1993 there was no Cardiff players named in a British and Irish Lions squad. But congratulations to Thomas Williams, of course, formerly Blue and Black Academy graduate, on being named in the squad. I think that was a very well-deserved one, and good to see that there's a little bit of Cardiff representation. I think I joked that they should have announced Cardiff, Gloucester, Wales, and then brackets really Cardiff, though, because we've sort of made him and created him when it was on stage. But I think Faletau will still be keeping by his phone in case of injury across this summer, because if there's not many out-and-out eights available, if like Conan or Ben Earl was to pick up an injury, so hopefully he'll be called. Well, hopefully not for them. Like it's just maybe like a stub toe, and then Faletau comes in. Nothing serious for them. And then finally, just to say, all of us at Cardiff Central Pod were saddened to learn of the passing of Cardiff supporter and CF10 Trust board member Claire O'Shea in the last few days. We'll do a full tribute next week's pod. Simon's going to be on the panel, who knew her well. But for now, we'd just like to pass on our condolences to her family and friends at this sad time. Moving on to Rags Corner then. It was a tough one on Sunday afternoon at the Arms Park. Cardiff went down 20-35 to Newport. Cardiff tries from Ethan Lloyd, Elijah Evans, and 10 points from the boot of Lloyd Lucas. It was 17-11 to Cardiff at half-time, but Newport sounds like turned the screw up front in the second half. Jack Lloyd, obviously the former Cardiff pathway player, led them around the park pretty well. Hopefully not the last time Lloyd does so, with his brother Johan joining us next season. But for now, not such good news for us when it comes to Lloyd's. Obviously, a couple of players missing, key players. Stefan Manuel and Matty Young are in South Africa with the first team. Josh Thomas left for the Dragons a couple of weeks ago, and then there was no sign of Lucas De La Rua, Harry Wild, or Tom Bowen, possibly through injury. Definitely the last two injured. It meant that Lloyd Lucas was making his first Super Rugby Cymru start, and his first start at the Arms Park at 10, having been the Cardiff Under-18s 10 earlier in the season. And so I think just the sort of lack of those star names impacted us getting the ball moving around the park. Gareth on Twitter asks, should we accept the Rags not making the final again, as it's all about development and they did so well in the league? Or should we be asking why we failed when it mattered 2 years running? And yeah, sort of the existential crisis for Rag supporters, really, of wanting the team to win and do really well, but also being aware that it is a development vehicle ultimately, and the success isn't just judged by results. When it comes to at the end of the season, they finished top of the league. They've had 7 academy players in every match day 23 of the league regular league season. There's been loads of successes in terms of Steph and Tom Bowen stepping up, Josh Thomas going on to the professional game, and the improvements of the semi-pro squad generally as well. I think, if it was all about winning and getting something at the end of the season, then they could have gone out and found another 10 somewhere once it became apparent that we were missing sort of any experience options. But the development aspect of it means that for Lloyd Lucas, that's a huge learning opportunity and stepping stone into probably being the Rags 10 a bit more next year, with hopefully Wild stepping up to the first team a bit more. So yeah, the answer is, it's not necessarily about accepting it as such, but as we might come on to later when discussing the first team's ability to make it to the playoff, it's sort of a disappointing success, and it didn't result in any trophy, but has ticked a lot of the boxes that we need to tick for the Rags. Right. At this point of the pod, then, just to say, if you are enjoying what you're listening to on whatever podcast platform you're on, feel free to subscribe and give us a rating. If you're watching us on YouTube, like the video, subscribe to the channel. There continues to be loads of pods coming out. The SRC guys will be previewing that final with Newport and Edward Vale going head to head. And I'd obviously just like to give my annual message of zero luck to Newport. Absolutely no good luck at all. I hope Edward Vale win. Fuck Newport. But yeah, there's plenty of stuff to go and find about that. We'll move on in the last part of the pod to this Friday evening's game. It's Stormers v Cardiff. I think it's like a 6 o'clock kickoff UK time or something a bit awkward, which will presumably be on BBC Two Wales as the Ospreys were last week. Stormers are currently 5th. Beat the Dragons 48-12 last week, although it was still 14-5 at 50 minutes. So they laboured past them a little bit, it's probably fair to say. That win for them meant that they're secure in the playoffs, but they can't get into the top 4 for a home tie. They could finish anywhere still from 5th to 8th, depending on other results. So they might want to secure a win, because then they're probably likely to play the Sharks and don't have to leave South Africa. But on the other hand, they might put their feet up for a little bit and rest a few players. Head-to-head wise, we're 2-1 up, but both of our wins have come at the Arms Park, most recently November 2023, when tries from Hamer Webb, Belcher, Grady and Litterick, as well as 11 points from De Beer, secured a bonus point 31-24 win. Unfortunately, our only visit to Cape Town so far was in March 2022, and that was a 43 loss. So if we can have a massive turnaround from that this year, that would be absolutely ideal. Just touching on the Stormers a little bit, Fordy, I'm guessing you've probably done a video on him at some point, but Sasha Feinberg and Ngomazulu, who I've learned to say his name today, he's some player, isn't he?
Yeah, he's ridiculously good. I know he got capped by the Springboks in the summer, but like seeing some of the stuff he's been doing recently, he's got a bit of that Bowden Barrett about him, the way he runs with the ball. And it's frightening that he can kind of cover 10, 12. I'm sure he'd do a job at 15 as well. Not sure if he's played there or not. But yeah, he's a frightening player, and definitely someone to get down early if he does start on Friday, because you don't want to let him get going, because it's just a disaster waiting to happen.
Fraser, I know you watched him as well before I don't know, how much have you seen of him before watching the highlights thing?
I haven't seen a huge amount of him. I've heard his name being bandied about, but I haven't really focused on him. But yeah, like you said, I watched the highlights of him against Connor and was it Benetton, and he just seems like he does what the fuck he wants. He's a bit of like a Finn Russell kind of style player. He does like some of the stuff he does is really stupid, like stupidly unnecessary, like wild offloads, and like really flamboyant and like flair player. But he's also like, he's really good. So like a lot of the things he tries do come off. Like sometimes he makes errors, but he just looks like such a quality player, and he's like a full package. He's pretty like physically strong in the tackle. Like he's good at kicking. He's a great fast runner, and he's got hands like magic hands that he can just like send someone away with his timing or whatever, the timing of the pass and that kind of stuff. So I mean, based on a 10-minute highlight package, I was very impressed. But obviously, I'm sure he does have some flaws, and I guess he is someone who will make some mistakes. the way he plays, which is good. I mean, fair play to him. He doesn't care if he makes a mistake, but maybe that's something we can kind of capitalize on and make sure we take advantage of any mistakes he does make. And yeah, like Fordy says, like not let him get ahead of steam and kind of build that confidence, because I imagine he just like goes step by step and just keeps on doing man shit and getting better and better. So yeah, I've been impressed, but hopefully he will be absolutely rubbish against us or not play either way.
Yeah, and of course that section of the pod was intended to put the Cardiff Central pod curse on him so that he either doesn't play or plays very badly when he is selected. Just before getting into the game as a whole, we had two very similar questions on different social platforms before coming onto the pod. Dan on Facebook asked, do we need to qualify for the playoffs for this season to be a success? And Gareth on Blue Sky asks that he wasn't expecting us to qualify for the playoffs at the start of the season, but now we've got this far. Should it be considered a failure if we don't make it? Fordy, yeah, it's a difficult one to answer, really, because it's sort of like two answers of it as the season as a whole has still been a success, I guess. But getting this far and getting so close, it would be like we'd be gutted if we didn't make it now on Friday, wouldn't we?
Yeah, absolutely. I think as well, on top of just getting into the playoffs, I think Champions Cup would be huge next season as well. So I definitely agree with Gareth that if we don't make it into the playoffs on Friday, I'll be absolutely gutted. Definitely a positive season without a shadow of a doubt. But I think more importantly on Friday, I'm just desperate for us, even if we lose, to put in a solid shift, because it's such an important game. Like we mentioned, it's a cup final, essentially. So to put in a solid shift, even in defeat, is huge. To just leave a bit of a mark on the league, that even if we haven't made the playoffs, we've shown that we've been able to compete and be there or thereabouts. So yeah, definitely be gutted if we don't make the playoffs, but I'd just still be positive overall come the end of Friday.
And Fraser, sort of building on that, my main preview question for this week was sort of around, we've had some shootout type games already this season. I think in Connacht at home in the Challenge Cup to try and get a home quarterfinal or a home round of 16 or to make it through to the knockouts. And then there was Connacht actually in the round of 16 again, of course, as the end of our trilogy against them. And then we've had Munster and Ospreys, which were sort of shootouts in their own right. We needed 10 points from those 10 games. Does putting in a performance on Friday in itself represent sort of progression throughout the season, where we've gone from games where we were struggling in those shootouts to now regularly winning or at least performing well in these big games?
Yeah, I think I was thinking about this. I think the Ospreys and Munster game. I mean, the Munster game in particular. That was a real. I know we were talking about that quite a lot, and like that was season defining. I think to get through that and to perform like we did against Munster and get the victory, I think that was a massive success. And I think this against Stormers, obviously, again, it would be brilliant to come out of it. Yeah, a good performance would be, a win would be obviously ideal, but like a good performance and bonus points would be excellent. But I guess it is slightly different being away from home. In South Africa, it is a different beast to play at the Arms Park. Like it is going to be harder than what we faced before. But I think if we can build off that kind of like fighting under pressure, like against Munster and coming out, and that mentality we showed to be able to like not crumble and to show the like fortitude that maybe in previous games, shootouts that we've maybe not shown, it is great. So we can fall back on that as a mentality, and the team can be like, yeah, no, come on, we've done it. We did it against Munster. We can do it against Stormers. And I do think we got that capacity to beat them. I'm not like over the moon confident, but like I think we definitely got the capabilities, and if we are on it from the get go and like against the Bulls, I think we can definitely get something out of that match. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, just on a stats level, we got more points, we got more wins, we scored more points than last season. We're definitely up on that. But I guess just like the Rags if we didn't win on the weekend and we didn't make the playoffs, it would be a disappointing success. That would be the sort of the strap line of the season, really. That we got so close, but was so far at the end. I watched most of the Dragons Stormers game on the weekend. I didn't fancy the Stormers that much, to be honest. I don't know whether they were sort of. You see it sometimes with teams playing the Dragons. They sort of, us in particular, in our two games against them, usually get dragged down to their level a little bit, and it's quite difficult. Also, not helped by the pitch at the Cape Town Stadium, resembling a ploughed field at times. Really, there was a couple of people struggling to get across that turf. But yeah, if they were 14-5 up against the Dragons at 50 minutes, they'd had a yellow card. If Cardiff can be somewhere around that at the middle of the game and bring a bench on that is better than what the Dragons can bring on, and with a starting 15 that's better than the Dragons have got, then yeah, I'd like to think that Cardiff could certainly cause them a few problems. And with Stormers, I think if you can get into them early, with them being secure in the playoffs and not actually having anything to play for, they might switch off and go into self-preservation mode quite quickly if we can start well. Team selection wise, sort of just general team news. We sort of know most of the squad that's gone out there to South Africa now. So left at home, I think the headlines were that Thomas Young, Evan Daniel and Ellis Bevan haven't travelled as players who you might expect to go. Obviously, all three either confirmed leaving or linked with leaving the Arms Park this summer. It also appears that Ben Donnell isn't out there. I haven't seen him on any of the training coverage. He obviously wasn't in the 23 on Friday. So not sure what the case is there. He is someone who I think is out of contract, but might have picked up a knock alternatively. He hasn't been doing any of the training at the Arms Park. And then guys like Ray Lilo, Mason Grady, Reece Barrett, Ewan Stevens, sort of your longer term injury guys who obviously haven't gone. But it was good to see Barrett and Grady doing some running on the Arms Park last week. So hopefully they'll be back ready to go for the start of next season. Fordy, just on the players left behind quickly. I'm thinking particularly Thomas Young. I know, there's an eye on next season there, but he would have been handy, wouldn't he, to take out to South Africa?
Yeah, definitely. I was quite surprised he didn't go out. I'm not sure if maybe Jockey has an eye on just given someone like Dan Thomas hasn't played too much so far in 2025, that was maybe send him out there with a point to prove. But yeah, I'm not really sure what the overall thinking is there, but I guess if we were to make the playoffs, he's still a handy player to have about. But after a good few weeks of rest, he's had his fair share of injuries as well over the last couple of years. That might be nice to kind of unleash a fresh Thomas Young in a playoff quarter final. But yeah, definitely a disappointment that he's not there, because especially the tight game against the Stormers with 20 minutes to go, he's a great option off the bench to just kind of wreak havoc on the breakdown.
Absolutely. Getting into the team then, Ben on Twitter asks about the front row options. He says that Danny Southworth and Kieran Azarati to start and Corey Domachowski and Littrick coming off the bench has worked quite well. Fraser, are we tempted to agree with Ben? Sort of the props have been switched around quite a lot, but that seems to be generally the way that they've gone over the last couple of games.
Yeah, I wouldn't argue with that. I don't think I have a strong opinion either way. If it's like Azarati, Domachowski, and Lloyd or Belcher, I think we're in a quite nice situation where whoever steps in does do a job. I think Danny Southworth has been one of the revelations of the season in terms of the way he's performed, and it's just that comfort knowing that when those players come on, they're going to be solid and they're going to hold the scrum. I think that's amazing. That's a really superb thing to have. It's not like a huge step down, whoever comes in. So yeah, if it was Azarati, Belcher, Lloyd, and then Southworth starting, and then getting Littrick off the bench, and Belcher, Lloyd, and then Domachowski, I'd be happy with that. I don't really have a strong preference either way. I don't think it's that impactful in a good way, I guess. But I don't know what you guys think about that.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that at all. It is, they're all quite similar level players now, and I think we'll go with Ben's one. And then if it's all wrong, we can blame Ben. So this is good. If you want to send your team selections in and do the job for us, we can just start blaming you when they're wrong. Then, so that'd be great. I put Belcher back in at hooker as the captain. I assume that's why they switched last week, to keep Belcher a bit fresher for this one. to start. Second row, then we've mentioned it before that Josh McNally was questionable for this weekend because the RAF are playing again. But I've had it confirmed today that he's definitely staying in South Africa and is available for Friday night. So that's good news for Cardiff, certainly. So I'm going to put Teddy and McNally in there because I imagine that that'll be the starting second row. Back row then for the Botham was hooked at half time on Saturday afternoon. Not obviously injured, seems to be training in footage they've put out today. Was that, do you think that was also a kind of preserve him for this weekend one?
Yeah, I imagine so because you've got that flexibility of he can cover 6 or 7, so it gives you a lot more options. I saw that turnover he got quite early on in the first half. That was quite a strong turnover, and I think against a team like the Stormers, that kind of breakdown threat, it could be an option to chuck him at 6 as well. He's not your Thomas Young at the breakdown, but he's definitely a good jackal threat. So yeah, it's tricky for me thinking at the back row because I think someone like Alex Mann has such a lot of fight in him that it'd be difficult to drop him. But then if you have a kind of option of Dan Thomas, there's you've still got that jackal threat in both of them, but also Dan Thomas can be a bit of a tricky player to play against as well. So I think Faletau's nailed on at 8 for me. But yeah, it's very tricky deciding who jumps in at 6 and 7 there.
Fraser, you got any strong thoughts on that, on the flankers?
I'd probably go Alex Manley at 6 again because he did play brilliantly. Well, brilliantly. He played well against the Bulls in like a pretty torrid situation, And I think he's got that physicality and drive that like would be useful to have against a big pack that the Stormers, I imagine, will inevitably have. So yeah, I reckon I'd probably go with Man and then probably both of them. Yeah, both of them with that flexibility in the back row, and then Dan Thomas coming off the bench, similar to last time. I know we got absolutely battered, but I do think that wasn't the reason we got battered as the back row selection. And then Faletau obviously to start because he was so good when he came on for that 25 minute. He's just like a level above anyone. Yeah, he's amazing.
Absolutely. I put scrum half down as a question for you just because Mulder didn't have his greatest game on Friday. I think it's fair to say. He obviously was trying to play behind a very well beaten pack, which doesn't make it particularly easy either. And the backs outside him weren't particularly brilliant either. But are we happy to sort of chalk that one off as one bad one? And the rest of the season, he's been so good since coming into the team that we're happy for him to start again and keep Alid as that closer role off the bench?
Yeah, I think so. I think if you reverse the roles there, I'm not sure is there a third scrum half that's travelled?
No, they've just taken 2 as far as I'm aware.
Yeah, I think in that case, it's kind of if you have Mulder from the start and that kind of conservative scrum half and Aled Davis coming off with 20 minutes to go, especially if it's a tight game or you're chasing a game and you wanted to get those kind of that kicking game going, I think it is the best way round. Yeah, Mulder didn't have his best game, but he's certainly come on a bit in the last few months, particularly compared to the start of the season. So, yeah, I'd agree. Kind of chalk that one off and give him another chance, especially playing in South Africa. I'm sure he'll relish every opportunity and every minute he plays as well.
And then the rest of the back line relatively picks itself, I guess, unless anyone's got any strong opinions. I don't know, maybe if Grace comes in on the wing or something. But you got Sheedy back in at 10, Ben Thomas and Millard in the centre, and then Hamer, Webb, Adams, and Winnett as your back 3. Winnett was hit and miss last week, but the only other real, like, you could put Adams back there and Grace on the wing maybe, but Fraser, I wouldn't be tempted to change that personally, but like whether there's a sort of just get a fresh legs on there maybe is the only like counter argument.
Yeah, he didn't have his best game against the Bulls. It was quite difficult. I think LaRue kind of toyed with him or just but also LaRue was so good. Like even when it was in the right position, the ball the kick was so precise that it made it look like he was in the wrong position. So I do think he was kind of up against the best of the best, so he looked worse in that sense, like comparatively. But yeah, he didn't have the best of games, but yeah, I don't think I would call for him to be taken out of the team or not. I think have faith in him to bounce back and be be as good as he can be against Stormers. So yeah, I'd stick with Winner at fullback.
I think the only thing I would add about the wingers is that I'd like to see just a little bit of innovation in terms of maybe like switching Adams and Hamer Webb wing wise, like during the game or something like that, just to mix up because I don't. Both are capable of playing on both wings. We've seen them. Adams has scored a hatful of tries on the left wing when he was a bit younger, and Hamer Webb's played on both wings for Cardiff this season. But I feel like we're not getting the best of Josh Adams at the moment. He's doing a lot of donkey work and is doing that well, but maybe I think, just to keep things sort of questionable in the defenders' minds and to get Adams with the ball in his hands in a bit more space every now and again, just switch them over on a sort of starter play and confuse the defence a little bit more because yeah, obviously there was the issue with the 10 and De Beer not quite being match fit and also being battered up front, but we looked quite sort of stale at times in attack, which isn't very Cardiff this season. I thought on Saturday we looked a bit lateral and just it looked like the Bulls knew exactly what was coming. So I wonder if doing something like that and just switching them up mid-game might help unleash both of them a bit more and keep things fresh in the defenders' minds. Bench-wise, then, I think we are just a 6-2 team now. Second row cover and the two back rowers forward. I've penciled in Thornton, Dan Thomas, and Alan Lawrence. Seb is out there as well. Would Seb be an option this weekend potentially for you?
It's definitely something I'd consider. I think it might just be personal preference. I would argue I think Seb would make more of an impact coming off the bench than Thornton would. But then at the same time, again, if the game's quite tight at the end, you've got that line out option of Thornton. It could be huge in terms of kind of securing the ball and making sure we keep it safe. So it's a really difficult one to kind of decide. And I think if given Thornton started on the weekend, you'd argue he's probably in prime position to be on the bench. So it's one of those not too fussed either way. I can see merits in both players, but yeah, kind of mixed bag there that I'm happy to go for Thornton. I think that's probably what Jockey will go for, but like I wouldn't be disappointed if Seth was on the bench.
Yeah, I think that absolutely reflects my foot. Sorry, I've just jumped there if you watch me on YouTube, but I think we're getting the thunderstorm incidentally as we're recording this that was meant to come yesterday, and a massive bolt of lightning just went across the sky. Oh, and there's the thunder then as well. Fraser, I think I agree with what Fordy said there, that like if you're predicting it's Thornton, but there's definitely an argument to say Seb, like if the game's going to be close. I can't imagine Cardiff are like running away with it in the final quarter. Yeah. So to bring Seb on to add a bit more to our attack might be the option. Is it like risk reward type thing there?
Yeah, it's true. I do have a big soft spot for Seb. It's a shame. I mean, I'm a little bit disappointed he's leaving, but I understand it. I don't know. I just can't see Jockey doing it though. That's the only thing. I just think it's gonna be Thornton. But yeah, similar to Fordy, I'm not strongly in favour of either way. So if Seb Davis was on the bench, yeah, I think he's got a bit more about him across the park and physically than Thornton. But I think Jockey's going to plump for like that structure and solidity coming off the bench just to see a game out or just hold the pack steady whilst we try and catch up. But we'll see.
And then the rest of the bench, obviously, Ali Davis is the scrum half option, as nobody else is, and Rory Jennings then in his natural habitat of the 23 jersey. So if I run through what we've got, Danny Southworth, Liam Belcher and Kieran Azarati up front, Teddy Williams and Josh McNally in the second row, Alex Mann, James Botham and Talupe Faletau in the back row, Mulder and Sheedy at fly half, Ben Thomas and Harry Miller at centres, and then Gabe Hamer-Webb, Josh Adams and Cam Winnett in the back three. On the bench, Evan Lloyd, Corey Domashowski, Rhys Litterick, Rory Thornton, Dan Thomas, Alan Lawrence, Ali Davis, and Rory Jennings. I think that's probably the pretty much strongest 23 we can put out of the players who are out there. Fordy, does that give you confidence here in that team that we can go and do something out there?
It's a bit early to say anything concrete. I don't want to jinx us like Tony did the other week, saying we'd comfortably beat the Bulls. But I don't know if it's exactly the same team, but it's a very similar team to the one that started. Well, it's very similar 23 to the Munster game, if I'm not mistaken. And that's kind of a positive that, they kind of grinded out a win against Munster, that hopefully on Friday they can do the same against the Stormers. But we'll see.
Fraser, similar question. Are we more excited now that Cardiff might achieve something?
Yeah, well, you can hope that, because against Munster we really did toy with throwing it away in the last minutes. We were gave them possession for quite a long time until Sheedy did the turnover. So maybe we've learned from that even further. We got over the line, and this time we'll be more relaxed, at ease with the situation, so less panicky. So that if we are in that position towards the end of the match where we're winning, we'll be able to close it out a bit better, because we've learned from Munster where we did close it out, but we panicked a lot. So maybe the panic will be less, and we'll be able to be all right, we know what we're doing. We've done it before. Let's get over the line, and we'll be in the playoffs. So you got to hope that and see what happens. But yeah, I mean, the Bulls match is still quite there in the back of my mind. So give me a couple of days so I can fully get rid of that, and then I'll be confident that we're going to beat the Stormers. But yeah.
Good stuff. That brings us to the end this week, unless anyone's got anything burning that they want to raise, Cardiff rugby-wise. No, all good. Who knows what the next few weeks brings on the pod, really. Obviously, it all comes down to Friday for the players and for us. More importantly, obviously, the podcast much more important than it actually happens on the pitch of the club. Hopefully, next week we'll be reviewing an excellent win over the Stormers and looking ahead to the playoffs. If not, we'll be crying slowly and wondering what might have been in certain games, but we'll look back on the Stormers game either way, and then either be playoff ready or start to review the season. But gents, thank you very much for joining me. Thank you very much for listening as well, and we'll be back next week.
That was the Cardiff Central Podcast. Please rate, review and share us on socials if you can, and join us again next week for more of the same. And until then, enjoy your rugby.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
Why choose a Sleep Number smart bed?
Can I make my side softer?
Can I make my side firmer?
Can we sleep cooler?
Sleep Number does that. Cools up to 8 times faster and lets you choose your ideal comfort on either side. Your Sleep Number setting. It's the Sleep Number Everything Smart Bed sale. Every smart bed and base are on sale during our Memorial Day event. Up to 50% off, plus free home delivery. Limited time. Exclusively the Sleep Number store near you. Learn more at sleepnumber.com.